Hi everybody, welcome to day 3 of Natik Diaries. Funny enough, this is actually day 5. Actual day 3 and day 4, I said the same story over and over again, twice. But every time the camera was recording in slow motion. So I don't know how to fix that. So now I'm using a different camera. Hi new camera. Anyway, so the last time in day 2 where we left off was I met this beautiful girl, and for 6 months I always saw her with like these longing eyes, and in the 6th month we started dating, and like by the 9th month she broke up with me even though she liked me a lot. She said that she hadn't been this close to somebody in a very long time, and despite that she broke up with me, and the only thing she said was I was needy. And she didn't say it explicitly, but she wanted to be exclusive. I mean, any girl wants to be exclusive, and that didn't happen either. Or I didn't offer exclusivity. In any case, I had to reflect upon this. I had to really reflect, because I mean it hurt me a lot because I felt so close to her and I wanted to be with her. And to all of a sudden lose her like that, it really made me wonder, what is this word neediness? Is it actually true? And why? Why do I have neediness? Excuse me. And I first had to go out and look up what was neediness. And I realized that there were like few kinds of neediness. There's a need for, we all are human beings and we have needs. We're not without needs, we're dependent in our environment, and that means we have certain needs. The most obvious of them is like food and oxygen, right? And apart from that, as human beings, as social beings, we have some other needs. For example, companionship, attention, love, etc., etc., praise, encouragement. And these vary across, for different people, it's a different set of these needs. But there are something called an unhealthy need, which is where your need goes a bit too far, like an unhealthy need for attention, for an unhealthy need for love, an unhealthy need for companionship, which is where you go to any lengths to get these things without any control on your part, right? And so in this case, it seemed to me that I had an unhealthy level of need for attention, for companionship, right? And in some sense, I cannot blame myself, because that is what falling in love is you want to be around this person. But maybe I took it too far, right? I mean, it doesn't make sense for me to want to be with somebody who I don't want to be with, who I don't want to spend time with, right? And maybe I took it too far. In any case, that was an interesting feedback, and now I want to segue into feedback. And feedback from the opposite sex, in this particular case, or in general from women to men, the feedback that women give us. And I think this is a crucial part in the development of a man, is to properly integrate this feedback from women on why they're rejecting us. And it's actually there to help us become better versions of ourselves. And Jordan Peterson, he talks about this, and he compares like the females of the human species to the females of chimps. And the females of the human species are super selective. And he claims that this selectiveness is what gave us our huge evolutionary advantage. In that women were super choosy, and in any species, actually he starts with this, in any species, the females are the guardians of the genetic pool. They decide which genes go into the next generation, right? And he claims that in other species, they're relatively a lot more like they open the gates as guardians, to a lot more men. But humans, women, the females of the human species, they're a lot more selective. If you're not the best, they're not going to let you in. And this is very interesting. I mean, there are some good implications and some bad implications because of this. The good implication is that only the best is going to the next generation, right? That means our species is getting stronger and stronger. The bad implication is that majority of men are not getting in. I don't know what the exact percentage is, but I think it's something like, less than 5% of all men living, only their genes got propagated. Or maybe it was something much smaller, but it is definitely in the single digits, and it's super small. And this gave us a huge advantage in that, women started choosing among human species, is that, they were the ones who figured out that the mind is actually stronger than the body, right? And, I think other species figured this out before us, which is like, social cohesion is stronger as well, because if you function as a single unit, then even if it's a huge predator, a single unit, we're much stronger together. And in humans, we went a step further than that, and we figured out that the mind, working with the mind in a social cohesive unit, is much stronger. And that is how we were to dominate all the other species as well as the natural elements around us, right? And a large part of this credit goes to women, females, who chose the right men. So in any case, the point I want to say is that within the female psyche of human beings, they have an amazing blueprint, an amazing rubric of who the right kind of man is to pass on to the next generation. We don't know where this rubric came from, but we just know that it's super strong. And what that means is that we have to pay attention to this rubric that women have. And as a side note, this rubric that they have, they're not even aware of it in most cases. That's kind of mind-blowing. I mean, how can you not, they have a rubric on how to find the right guy, but they're not even aware of it. And how does that manifest? They see the right guy who's who has high points on the rubric, and they feel an uncontrollable sexual attraction. That is how it manifests. And they can't even control it, right? And what the consequence of this is they can tell you that I want a guy who's super nice, who's attentive, blah, 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 right? And they can say it from a superficial level, right? But then when that guy comes along, they don't feel the attraction. And this other guy comes along who's unattentive, who's being jerk, the bad boy, and they feel an amazing level of attraction, right? And even they don't know why this discrepancy, why this disparity between what they say they want and what they actually want, or what they feel sexual attraction for. And it comes down to this rubric, which is deep embedded into their psyche that they're not even aware of. And it expresses itself, when it sees the right guy, it just pumps in a bunch of hormones and they feel a strong amount of sexual attraction. It's sad for them, but it's sad for everybody involved. I mean, that is the price of being the best. You have to make certain sacrifices. And as men, right, and men who get rejected, in this case me, it is absolutely important for us to pay attention to what this rubric is and find out how are we falling short, and then the things that we can do. So in this particular case, in my particular case, I was feeling neediness. And according to her rubric, that was not pumping out the hormones, that wasn't making her feel that strong attraction towards me. And this is important for me to pay attention to. I mean, one is, because I do want women to feel attracted to me. And two is, paying attention to it actually makes me get to the best version of myself. And so then I had to dig in deeper and find out, why am I needy? Is it something that I was born with, or is it something that, I imbibed from the culture around me or from my experiences, right? And so I did a deep dive and I went into it, and I found out, when did I start exhibiting needy behavior? And then I rewind the years, and then I read a lot of books, and of course, because you want to find out these patterns, and I did a lot of research online, and I found out that a lot of the men who are needy later on in life came from a single parent household. right? And that happened to me. In my particular case, my parents separated when I was very young. I think when I was 6 or 7, 8 years old. And my father left, and I kind of never really saw him after that, except for maybe a few days in between here and there. And my mother was a working mother. So I'd go to school before she woke up, and she'd come back from work 1 hour before I go to sleep, right? And that's on the weekdays. And she worked on the weekends too, but on the weekends we got to spend more time together. But what this basically meant was that, I wasn't spending that much time with my mother. And I was spending a lot more time with the mothers of my friends and my relatives, my cousins. And of course, they were so sweet to me, they were so wonderful to me. They saw that, my mother was working and I was brought up in India. And at that point, a single working parent was not that common as it is today. And they genuinely felt the sympathy for me that, I wasn't spending time with my mother or my father. And they took me under their wings and they took care of me. And that was beautiful, and I'm so thankful to these wonderful families. I can't thank them enough. However, a child desires attention, right? Because, for example, imagine if you're a baby and if nobody's paying attention to you and there's a sudden fire and nobody picks you up and runs away, you're kind of screwed. Or like a lion comes. So babies know when they're born, they know they want attention and they're incentivized to get attention if nobody's giving it to them, right? And if they're not getting the attention, they actually exhibit certain manipulative behavior, because you can't really call it manipulative because it's subconscious. Manipulative behavior to manipulate the people around them to think or to want to give them attention, right? And of course, there are many ways to go about this maybe, but two things that come to my mind is, one is actually calling for attention, which is crying, right? And two, which is the opposite, which is, finding out what pleases the people around you and exhibiting that kind of behavior so that, they're pleased, they feel good being with you, and then they want to be with you more. So unknowing to me, I did more of the second one, which was I did a lot of things to please to please my surrogate parents, you could say, right? And so, for example, it's quite simple, because in a lot of cases when you have good parents, I think it's all relative. You get pampered, right? By your parents. And some kids get pampered a lot. And some of the kids that I was hanging out with got pampered a lot, in that they got a lot of attention, a lot of, whatever they asked for, they'd get it, right? And of course, the side effect of that was that they didn't give a shit about who gave them attention or not, because they knew they were getting it. And so they were kind of, in some sense, like a bit rowdy, not rowdy, but not really giving a fuck, right? They wouldn't wake up on time, they wouldn't eat on time, they'd treat people however they want, they'd say whatever they want. And of course the parents would react in like a negative manner and be like, no, don't do this, blah, blah, blah. But they're like, what are you gonna do? In a couple hours you're gonna cool down and you're gonna come back and give me attention and tell me I'm a great boy, right? And I saw that and I was like, I wanted the attention, which they got so easy. So I would do the things that their moms told them not to do with the sole intention. I wouldn't care, why wake up on time or, eat food on time. But the sole intention of getting their attention and their validation, right? And mainly for their attention. And so from a young age, I built up this habit, right, of doing things to get attention. And not doing bad things, but actually doing good things to get attention. And later on, and this is how I was brought up, and later on when I was in my 20s, which is when I met this girl, that same behavior was on loop, right? It became an ingrained habit, right? Maybe I was born with it, I don't know, but this is my conjecture, is that I developed this behavior because of this special circumstance in which I was, and later on in life those loops were still running, right? But I had to go and find them. And then, of course, I had to get deeper and then break them, right? And I guess that'll be the topic for the next video. And so she called me neediness, and let's see, let's just do a quick recap. I've gone through, she called me needy, and then how did I find out what was neediness? Where did this neediness come from? I found it, right, where it came from, and I became aware of it in my daily actions. And the next question is, how did I manage to get rid of this neediness, which is doing things or just wanting attention? It wasn't even doing things, it was that, you know, basic intent to want attention. Like, you know, why couldn't, you know, I couldn't just forget about, you know, this girl and go on with my life. I was stuck thinking about her, and it became unhealthy. And so the next part of this video, I'm gonna go into how I got out of neediness, and we're also going to go into how that neediness was also transformed into supreme, you know, self-sufficiency, self-independence, to a point where I am today, which is I'm completely unfazed by the attention I get or I don't get, right? And of course, women find that extremely attractive today, right? And again, because I've been paying attention to this rubric, I've been working according to this rubric, and women find a man who is unfazed by attention, who does not care whether he gets attention from a woman or not, extremely attractive. And we'll go into why this is, why evolution's incentivized, you know, this kind of attraction into women later on. And we'll also talk a little bit more about the nice guy syndrome, and about, you know, the gap between the nice guy and the alpha, right? And why the alpha is actually much better than the nice guy. Being alpha is much better than being a nice guy, right? Why it's better for the individual, the man, why it's better for the woman, and it's why it's better for society as a whole, and how alphas, you know, push, you know, I keep saying, you know, a lot. How alphas push us forward. Cool. I have to review this video. I think I did a lot of ums and you knows, and I gotta check these things out. And I mean, that is the entire point why I'm making these videos. I'm not doing this to share these stories. I genuinely want to get better at expressing myself, expressing stories in a way that can easily connect with people, and I can feel more comfortable talking in front of a camera. And a nice bonus would be that I can explain complex topics through stories, and, you know, in that sense it would be easier for people to understand. Okay guys, thank you for tuning in. I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Bye bye.